End of October, beginning of November, I joined a Bob Branch and David Williams charter. It was a long charter, about 13 days, and it was predominantly Welsh, but they'd added on Apedale on the first day, because those of us on a coach came from Manchester and were going to Merthyr Tydfil, and Apedale was sort of down the M6 on the way. So at Apedale, David Williams had arranged for charter with some World War I locos and reenactors. And so just to start this, there's a few shots from Apedale. They have a good collection of simplex locos, lots of World War I stuff. There's an armoured simplex in the background there. The reenactors were, if you like that sort of thing, reasonably authentic, and added to some of the scenes, certainly. They had 2 locos in steam, including the World War I Hunslet 460, which I think probably came back from Australia. That was my favourite shot of the day. And there's something on the right-hand side, some reconstruction there around possibly a simplex, possibly something else, something diesel, but not sure what that's going to be. They've got a very short running line there, and we did the best we could with World War I type trains on it. That's the station they're building, Apedale. And so that was Apedale. So yeah, so it was just a little, nice bit of steam on the way to Wales. If you haven't been to Apedale, it's interesting. They did commemorations of World War I in 2014, 16 and 18. And their big events are worth going to. But then on to Wales, South Wales, near to Merthyr Tydfil. And there we have the recreation of sort of New England, American narrow gauge. Because it was late October, November, the weather was awful, which I'd sort of predicted. But at times the rain helped. You can see the rain slashing across the front of the loco there. It will be even more dramatic in later shots. That's the top of the line at Torpan Tau. It's on an old standard gauge formation. Standard gauge goes through a tunnel at this point, and for some reason the narrow gauge built a terminus there, slightly uphill. Again, rain's a bit more obvious. One of the intermediate stations. The loco number 1, Santa Teresa, came back from Brazil. It's a Baldwin. That's the rainiest one. We got quite wet during the 13 days, as you can imagine. But you know, the sun would occasionally come out. It's working on it there. And you know, later on in the day we had some sunshine. They have created a sort of American consist of boxes, vans and caboose and stuff. It all looks fairly good. The line is actually not so much a volunteer heritage line as a private for-profit line, but the owner, he employs a number of staff, and he's very keen on narrow gauge, and runs it to make a profit, or not, but runs it. That was my nice fly agaric mushroom shot. Um, there's a bridge to nowhere there. Presumably the railway was required to build this bridge when they put the line back, but it ends at nowhere. It ends in just in the bush, you know, that it's all overgrown, so nobody really goes over that bridge. This one sort of has, perhaps not that I've done it, but the sort of New England narrow gauge feel to it. This is around the reservoir there, halfway up the line. So, you know, it's the same loco, same consist all day and variable weather. They have two other locos, another American loco #2 and this German loco, which I think sisters of this loco are running in Germany. They have used this on the line, but it's a bit small for trains these days. It's out of ticket. And then further into Wales, this is central to northern Wales, coastal Highland Railway, the one that never closed and went straight into preservation. It's a difficult line to photograph. This is Raby, one of the halts along the line. We had #7 Tom Roll, which was rebuilt from bits from Ireland, from Bord na Mona. I think it was Andrew Barclay loco, I think, without referring to my notes. But that's their newest loco. That one I never quite got focused, but we did have some sun. They were still running service trains, and so #3 is an ex-Corris loco, Sir Hyden, and that was passing our train. We did the whole line, but we went back to try various bits of it. This was one we tried several times. You couldn't, in the morning the sun wasn't on the foreground, and in the afternoon it wasn't on the background. There was a tree which was considered photogenic, so we tried that one. And this is top end of the line at Nant. Bottom end of the line, Towin. I have a similar photo in black and white from the early 1960s, which I haven't merged in with this, but basically I first saw it in the 1960s. It's the 2-story building museum there. It's expanded quite a lot, but it still looks quite similar to the early days. One of their locos from Airfield Construction Douglas has been repainted in sort of RAF blue with a roundel on it. You may or may not approve. That was also working service trains. That's our loco at Cowan. Yeah, we got a bit more liquid sunshine. So it rained most days on the trip, and we just had to live with it. It led to some interesting photos. That's also in the rain with the sun shining. And this was sort of the final shot of the day. Palatin's a challenge because of very tight hedges, a lot, and slate walls and things along the line. So actually finding any width can be quite a challenge. So I'm not checking time at the moment, but I'll go for 5 or 10 minutes longer. We moved on to the Ffestiniog. Not a very attractive shot, but that was really for 8 nights I stayed in the flat, which my cursor's showing down their bottom. There's an ugly development called South Snowdonia Wharf, with some very ugly 1970s concrete, but it was quite convenient. But from next year there'll be a Premier Inn opposite the harbour station. So we'll see where people stay. We had Fairley, double Fairley, Meriden Emrys. That was with us for a lot of the trip. I like articulated locos. I'm not that keen on Fairleys, but they can shift quite well. So I ended up sort of feeling better about them than I had before. And with all the rain, we got some rainbows. So that was most rainbows. You don't see both ends, so that was quite a coup, I think. We also had Paul Lewin, the manager, was driving Lila, and he brought it up to the spiral, and just a few shots. So people out there in not very nice weather, and but between the weather, we got some shots. This is again the spiral. Well, and this was less pleasant weather, and we just stood in it for an hour or two, waiting for the break in the cloud, which eventually came, and then more rainbows. So it was a very good trip for rainbows. We did once get to the top end at line of Ffestiniog, and it was wet and grey, as it often is. We also had a couple of hours on the hillside near the lake at Ffestiniog Lake, might be Burnley, maybe not. But this lake, so yeah, our first attempt on this was very, very wet and was miserable. Back down here at Maddock, that's looking towards the port from Boston Lodge. The actual coastline scenery is very attractive. You get some nice light on it. The harbour there at Port Maddock. Some nice early morning light there. That's Prince, one of the England locos. The view across the Cobb there, looking towards Boston Lodge. The buildings in the distance there, that is the South Snowdonia Wharf. So those are all those horrible concrete things, but they don't look too bad with a reflection on a nice morning. We went back to the lake, beyond the tunnel and the deviation and the spiral, and actually managed to get some decent shots the next day. This is the east end of the former tunnel. Before they built the deviation, this was where the line went, and they had to build the deviation because of the reservoir that was built for a power station. We spent some time in the afternoon at the spiral at Dual. Most people went back up the hill again to look down on the upper track, and I stayed down at the station. There's the possibility there of having, especially if you have charters, of having a train underneath and a train over the top. And let's see there, some coming. So you have a fairly on the top and an England loco on the bottom. And I actually prefer the second of these shots because of the way the steam hangs under the wagon around here. I love the effect. Wish I'd managed to still have the loco in the shot as well. Again, back down at Fort Mallock, looking attractive in November. Nice. This is early morning again. Early morning light. And that's where we move on to the Welsh Highland. We had 3 days on the Ffestiniog and then 3 days on the Welsh Highland. It got reversed. The Welsh Highland was flooded by all the rain, so they needed some time to make sure that the track bed was okay. So we did the Ffestiniog first. I will give you another few minutes if that's all right. Is everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Still there, yeah.
Yeah. So as part of our sort of 6 days in Port Maddock area, we then moved on to the Welsh Highland, which of course brings in Garrett's, and the K1 from repatriated from Tasmania was also there. It's not normally at Stapford Barn, but it was available to us. It was back on the line. So got some nice glint with one of the ex-South African Garretts. Again, early morning, rain, rainbows, glints, whatever. The structure just behind the signals here will be the Premier Inn. So if you don't stay in the Travel Lodge the other side of town, you'll be able to stay in the Premier Inn very soon. We had Welsh Pony, which is a large England. That was on our train as well up onto the Welsh Highland. This is at Apedale. One of the Fairleys on the other end. So we went over to Rithdy and looking at the trains coming up the hill from there, the Garrett. So the sort of South African train behind it, rainbow and steam. But again, the rain persisted. This is rather a wet shot, that one. And this is back again at no, name escapes me, Apedale. Back there. So obviously, if those are the only shots I selected from the day, climbing the hill, it was wet a lot of the time. That's our train back to Port Maddock. We did quite a lot of shots. There's this pyramid mountain, I think it's called Nick or whatever, and there is an old sea wall, and several days we had goes at shots here. I see I'm running out of time, so that's fine. That's good. Yeah, so this is Welsh Pony with the pyramid behind it. Nice glint going away. And rainbows again. So you can see the shadows of the people. This particular shot's got a murmuration of starlings in it as well. And again in that. probably the last day on the Welsh Highlands, so I'll let's run out here. This is David Lloyd George, one of the other Baileys. Again, the lighting was dramatic after the rain, and this chap who works at the National Railway Museum at York, in the book sales, second-hand book sales area. Anyway, he really stood out in the sun after the rain. And we've got Welsh pony. Suppose this is the second of the 3 days. So I'm not quite sure where the K1 comes in, but I'm hoping to show the K1 in a moment. Snowdon, that's the top of Snowdon there. The Rack Railway approaches from the side where my cursor's going. That section wasn't open this year. They operated only part way. Because of COVID, they didn't think the summit could cope. See something on the left. Yeah, so Snowdon with a dusting of snow. That was the best we got for snow. Here we have the K1 fronting one of the, I think they're NG16 Garretts from South Africa. K1 was the first production Garrett. K1, K2 went out to Tasmania. They brought all the bits back and they made one loco out of it. It's got plates of K1 on one side and K2 on the other. That's one of the South African Garretts. It's Snowdon in the background, some of it Snowdon up there. So this is approaching the on the roads there. Welsh pony. Views are pretty spectacular. You've got old slate or possibly other mining, but probably slate or mineral mining on the right hand side. One down. I'm going to stick for a bit now. Very dramatic rock scenery. Okay, one of them. Going away shot of one of the South African Garretts. Here's K1. And I think I'll finish on that point.